"Sir, you look tired." The voice was small, gentle, like sunlight sneaking through clouds. The man turned sharply, irritated. The first-class cabin was silent except for the hum of the engines. He stared at the little black girl sitting across the aisle, her legs barely touching the floor, her braids tied with pink ribbons. He forced a cold smile. "Excuse me." She blinked. "You look like you forgot how to smile." The flight attendant froze. The man's jaw tightened. But he had no idea that one sentence would undo everything he thought he knew about life. Richard Wallace, 48, billionaire CEO, founder of one of the biggest tech companies in the world. He built empires out of spreadsheets, broke competitors with his voice, and carried himself like time owed him money. He never flew commercial. But today, a mechanical failure on his private jet forced him onto a public flight. A first-class seat he considered punishment. He hated everything about it. The noise, the crying babies, the cheap smell of reheated food. He adjusted his cufflinks, closed his laptop, and muttered, 6 hours to New York. Let's just get it over with. Then he heard that voice again. "Sir, do you need my cookie?" He looked over. The same girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, was holding out a tiny chocolate chip cookie from her airline snack bag. Richard frowned. "Why would I want that?" She smiled. "My grandma says people who look sad need something sweet." He stared at her, confused, annoyed, and, oddly, disarmed. Her name was Amara. She sat beside an elderly woman in a floral dress, her grandmother, who gave Richard a kind nod. Amara kept talking, her voice full of brightness that didn't belong in a world so heavy. "Do you work a lot?" she asked. Richard sighed. "Too much. My grandma says work makes you tired if it doesn't make you happy," Amara said. "Do you like your job?" He paused, caught off guard. "It's complicated," giggled. "That's grown-up talk for no." The people nearby chuckled. Richard forced a smile. He wanted to focus on his laptop, his deadlines, his empire. But her words stuck like glue. She didn't know it, but no one had talked to him like that in years. As the plane climbed higher, Richard's mask began to slip. He was supposed to be meeting investors to finalize a deal worth billions. A deal that would automate jobs, laying off thousands. He told himself it was just business. Progress, but deep down he remembered faces. People who had worked for him for decades, who called him Sir, with fear instead of respect. He felt the weight of their silence every night. He hadn't slept properly in months. His doctor warned him, "If you don't slow down, your body will do it for you," but he didn't listen. He didn't have time. A few hours into the flight, turbulence shook the cabin. Amara squealed, gripping her grandma's hand. Richard glanced over. The girl looked terrified. Without thinking, he said, "Hey, it's okay. Planes do this sometimes." She nodded slowly. "You're not scared." He chuckled. "I've been on hundreds of flights. I'm used to it." She tilted her head. "Then why do you look scared even when the plane's not moving?" That one hit deep. He didn't answer. After a moment, she whispered, "My mom says scared people sometimes hide it by looking angry." He turned to the window, his throat tight. "Your mom sounds smart." The girl went quiet. The grandmother placed a gentle hand on Amara's shoulder. "She was," the old woman said softly, "but she's gone now." The words fell like stones. Amara looked down. Mom got sick. She was a nurse. She said when people are sad, we should make them smile anyway. Richard swallowed hard. For the first time in years, he had no words. Hours passed. Most passengers slept. The lights dimmed, but Richard couldn't stop glancing across the aisle. Amara was coloring on a napkin with a dull red crayon, humming to herself. He watched her draw 2 stick figures. A tall man with a briefcase and a little girl holding a cookie. Underneath, she wrote in big, shaky letters, "Everyone needs someone." Something broke inside him. He opened his laptop, but instead of numbers, he stared at the blank screen until his reflection blurred. For the first time, he saw what the girl saw, a man who had everything except joy. When the plane landed, people began to gather their things. Amara and her grandmother stood up slowly. Richard hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and handed Amara a business card. "If you ever need anything at all, you call me, okay?" She looked at it curiously. "What's this?" He smiled weakly. "A way to reach me." Her grandma thanked him politely, but Amara tilted her head again. "You already look less tired." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, maybe I do." As she walked away, she waved the cookie she'd kept. "Don't forget to smile, Mr. Businessman." And then she was gone. Weeks passed. The deal was signed. The automation project moved forward. But something felt wrong. Every time Richard walked through his office, rows of tired faces, lifeless eyes, he thought of Amara. "Work makes you tired if it doesn't make you happy." Those words haunted him. One morning, during a meeting, an employee named Denise broke down crying after being told she'd lose her job. Richard stood frozen. For the first time, he saw her not as a number, but as a mother, as someone's world. That day, he canceled the automation rollout. His board of directors went ballistic. But he didn't care. He started a new initiative instead, Project Amara, to create scholarships for children of working parents, especially single ones, and every year after that, he'd personally fund hundreds of kids to go to school, in honor of a little girl who once gave him a cookie on a plane. 3 years later, at a scholarship event, Richard stood on stage reading the list of new recipients. The crowd was full of proud parents, teachers and children, and then he froze. On the list, the name, Amara James. He looked up. There she was, a little older now, taller, holding her grandma's hand. She smiled brightly. "You still look tired, sir." The crowd laughed. He stepped off the stage, tears in his eyes, and whispered, "Not anymore." Amara grinned. "Good. Mom would be proud of you." He knelt down, voice shaking, "And I'm proud of you, kid. You changed my life." She looked at him, eyes full of light. "No, sir. You just remembered how to live it. We never know when the smallest voice will speak the loudest truth. Sometimes it's not a boss, a parent, or a leader who changes a life. Sometimes it's a child on a plane who just dares to notice your sadness." That day, a billionaire found his heart again, not in a boardroom, but in a conversation that lasted 6 hours at 30,000 feet. Tell us in the comments, what's one small kindness you'll never forget? And where are you watching from? Subscribe for more cinematic stories that remind us, kindness doesn't just change others. It brings the tired back to life.